The air in the factory that morning tasted of burning oil and wasted hope. I remember the metallic tang on my tongue, blending with the sour notes of sweat and coffee. We stood in lines beneath sickly strip lights, shadows smeared across the gray concrete floor. Pipe clangs echoed up in the steel rafters as our shift lead, Jonas, read from a trembling page. His voice, thin with exhaustion, caught on the names. I listened, numb, until Sifo Maseko. He didn't look up from the list, didn't need to. Everyone's eyes found me anyway, sliding over my hunched shoulders and paint-stained hands. A few tried for pity. Most gave me nothing. The dismissal was quick. The security guard sidled closer, and Jonas's lips twitched in what I guess was apology. I nodded once. The papers in my locker needed no gathering. I walked out with just my coat and the gritty ache of 27 years pressed against my chest. Outside, dawn spilled through the wire mesh fence, golden and sickly, making the township beyond look oddly peaceful. I watched the sunrise through the bars, breathing in. My mother's words echoed in my head. Dreams are for people with options, Sifo, not us. By noon, I was pacing the narrow passages of our home, paint under my fingernails catching on the frayed seams of the sofa cushion. My mother shook her head when I told her what happened. We need luck, not dreams, she said. Eyes hard as river stones. Her disappointment sat between us, a heavy, wordless thing. I looked at my father for support, but he was silent, jaw tight, like always. My brother Zolani hid a half smirk behind his chipped mug. The same smirk he wore a decade ago when I showed them my first charcoal sketch. Time to stop with this painting rubbish, my uncle declared after supper. He smelled of paraffin and blame. People need jobs, not pictures on walls. Okay. His laughter, rough with phlegm, set off the others. Neighbors clucked tongues. Even my cousins joined in, their eyes flickering between me and my now silent father. But I could not shake the ache in my fingertips, the itch to paint, to mark the world, to tell the truth of my joy and grief in streaks of cobalt and vermilion. That night, as the township finally quieted and the city's lights blinked on the horizon, I sat up in the dark, tracing the cracks in my wall. I knew I would paint, job or no job, home or no home. The next months tested that certainty. Days blurred into chores and failed job applications. I took whatever work I could, sweeping up after bricklayers, fixing shutters, hauling crates at markets. But every evening, I painted. I scavenged for scrap boards and broken pallets in skips behind schools and hardware shops. I used dirt-cheap brushes, sandpapered to faint fuzz. I painted faces I saw in queues, tired women carrying wire, hawkers in the rain, lovers pressed close at bus stops. Sometimes my mother wept in the next room. I heard her whispering to my father about that boy lost, useless. Once she told me outright, "You're selfish. This painting, what good does it do us?" Her voice tracked the shape of my failure, yet I felt a stubborn clarity burning under my ribs. I did not know what my paintings were worth, only that I could not stop. The real turning point was Qhama. We met on the minibus, jostled between market-bound sacks and snatches of choral music from a passenger's phone. She wore her hair in a bold crown and kept her sketchbook open on her lap. When I craned to look, she smiled, inviting. Her drawings were loose and alive, quick lines conjuring dancers, birds, storms. We began meeting weekly, swapping battered notebooks at the cafe by Diagonal Street. She brought me battered tubes of ultramarine salvaged from student art bins, encouragement, and something gentler, like possibility. "You must show," she insisted, her eyes fierce. "You must let the city see you." I laughed. "Are you mad? People only know my old job. My family thinks painting is a sickness. Good, she said, not unkindly. Let them. The hardest paintings came next. Portraits of my mother, her eyes hollowed by disappointment. My father, chained to his quiet. My brother, face split between pride and disgust. My uncle, mid-jeer. I was terrified painting them. But after, I felt a clean pain, something necessary and almost sacred. Qhama promised to arrange a group show in Bromfontein. I thought of lying, skipping it entirely, but I owed her and myself. On the day of the show, fear nearly split my spine. I carried 4 canvases, wrapped in worn sheets, through the gridlocked streets. The gallery was just a fat room above a kebab spot. The white wall looked absurd, swallowing my paintings like a sea. But when I fixed the first portrait on a hook, my mother's face, strong and weary, something inside me loosened. As guests began to trickle in, mostly students, 1 or 2 curious aunties, I hid in the far corner, pretending to study the art on the opposite wall. Conversations braided through the room, laughter punctuated by the sharp click of phone cameras. A soft, gray-haired man lingered at my paintings, his gaze intent. I felt pinned under it. When he spoke, his accent was clipped, European. Your work, so much restraint and ache. He pointed to my father's portrait. Brutal but loving. I nodded, unable to speak. The man pressed a card into my palm. Come to my studio. I want to purchase and talk. I walked home that night dazed, clutching his card. My family barely looked up when I entered. My mother's hands were in the wash basin, soapy to the wrists. My brother called out from the couch. Did they give you a prize for the most useless career? Laughter pealed around the table. But 3 days later, a deposit landed in my battered bank account. A sum so unimaginably large, I spent an hour checking it again and again. That same day, I met Herr Fuchs at his studio. He bought all 4 canvases, then offered to sponsor a year of painting in his collective. I attended workshops, studied with artists from all over Africa and Europe. Everyone urged me to show more. Exposure led to commissions, to a solo show, then travel. I wrote to my mother, sending money and calling home. All she ever said was, "You must be eating well," or "When are you coming home, Sifo?" Not once did she mention my art. I sent postcards with painted cityscapes, Paris, Lagos, Cape Town. Nothing framed them. They ended up in the kitchen drawer. The years gathered and then, abruptly, spun back toward home. I felt the weight of absence in every phone call. My father's health faltered. My mother sounded older. Every hello stretched thin. Then came the invitation. A new art center opened in Maboneng, and the director asked for a homecoming exhibition. Your work speaks to Johannesburg, her letter read. Let's bring you back. I hesitated. What if my family came only to sneer? What if old friends greeted me as a joke? But maybe, I thought, it was time for proof, not words, but paint and presence. On the night of the exhibition, I rolled up in a battered Honda. I still couldn't stomach the idea of luxury. Maboneng buzzed with streetlights and market noise, 1,000 small lives moving through the dark. The gallery stood bright and glassy, music leaking from somewhere inside. My palms were slick. I walked through the doors. Walls gleamed with my latest canvases. Riotous city afternoons, workers in silhouette, longing carved into painted bodies. For the first hour, I shook hands, accepted congratulations, but my mind drifted, restless. Then I saw them, my mother, standing in the entrance, dress stiff and simple. My brother, newly bearded, blue shirt wrinkled. My father, thin but upright, hand tight on his cane. Behind them, a cluster of neighbors from our block, eyes wide and uncertain. I held still, waiting. My mother's mouth was a line. She scanned the room, not meeting my gaze. My brother's hand